Coming up on the Beltway Boys, Rudy Giuliani scored some big-time points at this week's GOP debate, but he still has a ways to go with social conservatives.
Hillary Clinton gets slammed by fellow Democrats for her, quote, evolving stance on funding the war.
President Bush and Congress finally strike a deal on immigration. We'll name the big winners and losers.
And is an independent presidential bid by Michael Bloomberg for real?
It's all coming up on the Beltway Boys, but first, the headlines.
And from America's Newsroom, I'm Trace Gallagher. The U.S. commander in Iraq believes at least 2 of 3 kidnapped soldiers are still alive. General David Petraeus also saying he thinks he knows who has them. Meantime, an Iraqi army officer says they've got 2 captives who have confessed to being part of last week's raid where the GIs were grabbed. The suspects saying their group split up after the attack. They claim the ringleader took the soldiers with him. An al-Qaeda-linked group is now claiming responsibility. 3 German soldiers killed by a homicide bomber in northern Afghanistan. The attack happened in a crowded market. At least 7 others were killed, more than a dozen wounded. Reports that the Taliban is claiming responsibility. Germany's chancellor denouncing the attack. German forces operate mainly in the north, considered a much safer region than the southern part of the country. Top officials at the National Weather Service announcing their resignations. Director David Johnson and Deputy Director John Jones planning to step down in June. Their departures coming a day after sharp criticism from the head of the National Hurricane Center, which is part of the National Weather Service. The center's director saying millions are wasted on advertising while their budget is being cut. No word if the resignations were prompted by the criticism. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich honoring the Reverend Jerry Falwell during his commencement address at Liberty University. The speech coming just 4 days after Falwell's death. Gingrich telling the graduates they can honor Falwell's spirit by using Christian ideals to confront, quote, the growing culture of radical secularism. Falwell established the church-based university back in 1971. His funeral is on Tuesday. And coming up on the Fox Report, 2 very well-known senators involved in a big-time screaming match. John McCain, John Cornyn squaring off, and those who were there say the F word was dropped in an hour.
I'm Fred Barnes.
And I'm Juan Williams, in for Mort Kondraki, and tonight, we're the Beltway Boys.
And in case you're wondering, Mort is in Tibet, finding himself these next few weeks. He'll be back June 2nd. In the meantime, Juan, thanks for filling in. And tonight's hot story is frontrunner fracas, or is it fracas?
Fracas.
Fracas. All right, we'll stick with fracas. Anyway, Juan, what I'm talking about is this new sizzle in the presidential races for 2008 for both parties, Democrats and Republicans. And what's the sizzle from? It's the frontrunners fighting with each other, as they're doing in both parties. And here's what's amazing. This is 8 months before the first actual voting contest, which I guess will be the caucuses in Iowa in January. Well, let's start with the Republicans. And, of course, both of us watched that great Fox News debate this week that was also watched by something like 2.5 million American households, and who knows how many people overseas. But in any way, the frontrunners disagreed on terrorism. They disagreed on whether you should, under some circumstances, actually torture captured terrorists. And then there was that hardy perennial abortion that was brought up again. Now, the question on dealing with terrorists who've been captured is, how far do you go in questioning a captured terrorist who may have information about an imminent attack? How far do you go to get that information out of him? First, here's what Rudy Giuliani said.
I'd say every method they could think of, and I would support them in doing that, because I've seen what can happen when you make a mistake about this, and I don't want to see another 3,000 people dead in New York or anyplace else.
I'm sure you noticed that loud applause. And there was a big crowd there, something like 2,500 people. Now watch John McCain, who took a different tack. Watch.
I, as the President of the United States, would take that responsibility. That is a 1,000,000-to-1 scenario. But only I would take that responsibility. The use of torture, we could never gain as much we would gain from that torture as we lose in world opinion. We do not torture people.
Well, and here's Mitt Romney. Here's his take. Watch.
The President of the United States has to make the call, and enhanced interrogation techniques have to be used. Not torture, but enhanced interrogation techniques, yes.
Well, of course, McCain thinks that enhanced techniques actually amount to torture in some cases. But in any case, my verdict is that Rudy Giuliani won that round.
Sorry, Fred, can't agree on that one. I don't think there's any question John McCain wins. And here's why John McCain wins. John McCain is standing there as a man who's been a prisoner of war, a man who said right then there on the stage, he's never heard another military man say, yes, we should use torture. To the contrary, he says, the American military understands that people, when they're being tortured, will say anything you want them to say, so it's not very effective. But maybe most of all, what he said about losing in terms of the high moral ground as opposed to the terrorists. The terrorists have no moral ground, and the idea that we want to get in the mud and muck with them, I think America has to stand for something higher. And while you're right, there was applause from that Republican base at that moment, I think it pushes away so many people in the American electorate, swing voters, Democrats. I think it's just damaging to the party to get off in that deep and dark and, to my mind, sad corner of torturing people.
The corner is one where you have as your highest priority saving American lives. But in any case, let's turn to Rudy Giuliani and abortion. You know, he's had, as we know, trouble explaining his pro-choice position in a way that somehow might not be totally repugnant to pro-life Republicans. And he tried again at that debate, and I thought he did pretty well. Watch.
I ultimately do believe in a woman's right of choice, but I think that there are ways in which we can reduce abortions. Abortions went down 16% when I was the mayor. Adoptions went up 133% during the 8 years that I was mayor compared to the prior 8 years.
As better as he was in explaining his position, and he's still, look, he's a pro-choice Republican and a pro-life Republican Party, right. And he still has this huge problem with social conservatives who are pro-lifers, particularly with, we know now, Dr. James Dobson. You know he is. He's the head of Focus on the Family and an enormously influential social conservative in America. And here's what Dr. Dobson said. If given a choice between Giuliani and Senators Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, I will either cast my ballot for an also-ran, or if worse comes to worst, not vote in a presidential election for the first time in my adult life. My conscience and my moral convictions will allow me to do nothing else. Take that, Rudy Giuliani.
Well, you know, the problem is that Rudy Giuliani is flip-flopping and flailing, Fred. I mean, he's in trouble on this. He should simply say that he supports a woman's right to choose on abortion. In fact, I think there are lots of people who would find it bracing in the Republican Party to get away from all those who don't say what they believe, and that he would say, you know what, we have this difference and let's move on. So that would be good news. Well, but what we're seeing, well, he's not, no, instead he's talking about adoptions. He's talking about, well, I didn't mean it to be okay if the court did away with Roe v. Wade, okay if they didn't do away. He, it seems to me, is lost in obfuscation, and that's why I say guilty of flipping and flopping. And you see these attacks now coming from Romney, coming from everybody else lined up there saying, you know what, you don't have a position. And remember, I think there was a great exchange where McCain says, I don't change my positions. That was to Romney, but he said, I don't change my positions given what office I'm running in, what year I'm running. I stand by my post. So if you look at the polls will tell you something about Giuliani. The polls indicate, according to the latest Fox News poll, that former New York City Mayor Giuliani is still leading the Republican field, but by 7 points, only 7 points. His support has slipped sharply since last month, Fred.
Well, what about the Democrats?
Well, now on the Democrats' side, what you've got is a real difficult situation. The front-runner fracas is get a fight between Barack Obama, the senator from Illinois, and Hillary Clinton, because this week Hillary Clinton, talk about confusing, hazy on getting the troops out, setting a deadline. She says she wants a deadline, but it's now becoming sort of confounding, even mystifying. She says she wants a debate on the March 8th, 08 withdrawal date. Okay. She says, I don't say I disagree or agree with it. I just want the debate. But later that very day this week, she said she did support that March 08 deadline for a troop withdrawal. And later, of course, she was one of the 29 Democrats who lost a procedural vote to try to bring that deadline to the Senate floor. So what you see is it's not clear what she believes.
Well, that's not what she says. It should be perfectly clear that she's always been for a withdrawal deadline. I mean, watch what she said.
This is consistent with what I've been saying for several years. And if you go back and look at the legislation I introduced back in January, it's consistent with what I introduced back in January. It is frustrating to see the same policy day by day, which is not getting the results that many of us have called for.
Of course, she hasn't been consistent on this at all. I mean, it was some months ago, or maybe a year ago, when she said she was against any deadlines or timetables. So she has kind of moved all around, and I'll have to say I'm confused, and as you are, and many Democrats are as well. Now, Barack Obama, the senator from Illinois, and her chief rival, he's hit her on another issue. Hillary says, well, our positions are the same. Obama points out that she voted for the war resolution in October 2002. At the time, he was an Illinois state senator, but he did sound off on it and said he was against the war from the beginning, and so that their positions are not the same. You know, there's this, there are polls on everything. And there's one that shows that among the top-tier candidates, Hillary Clinton has the highest percentage of people who say she'll say anything to get elected. That's according to our latest Fox News poll. So, you know, this issue of Iraq is going to continue, I think, to dog Hillary Clinton and help Barack Obama, but Hillary's still ahead. Okay, coming up, Michael Bloomberg's flirtation with the third-party presidential run. And after months of negotiation, there's finally a deal on immigration reform. We'll name the big winners and the losers next.
The captioning for this program is brought to you by...
Consider this: a 3-act mouthwash. Act 1 freshens breath. Act 2 restores minerals. Act 3 strengthens tooth enamel. Act 3 acts, 1 bottle.
Your lovely tree, attacked by insects. Bayer Advanced Tree and Shrub Insect Control protects your tree for a full year without spraying. And now try new Protect and Feed granules. At Bayer Advanced, we don't hate bugs, we just love trees.
Are you a homeowner with a first mortgage, second mortgage, auto loans, student loans, or credit card debt? Or would you like to consolidate your debts into one low monthly payment? Log on or call 1-800-71-FIXED, a GMAC company.
How did you become such a great master?
Yellowbook.com.
Yellowbook.com?
Everyone is searching for something.
Isn't Yellowbook.com for buying stuff?
After all, it is a material world. Let's say pizza makes you happy. Just type in what and where.
But Master, how do you show them the way?
Yellowbook.com has a map feature. Infinite information. Yellowbook.com.
Quick, local, reliable.
Head on. Apply directly to...
Head on. Apply directly to the forehead. Head on. Apply... Head on. I hate your commercial, but I love your product.
Head on is available without a prescription. Activon Ultra Strength Arthritis. Apply directly where it hurts. Activon. Safe and effective pain relief. Activon Ultra Strength Arthritis. In stores now.
Embarrassed by rough, dry, cracked heels? Flexitol Heel Balm has a unique formulation that intensively hydrates and moisturizes feet, leaving them wonderfully soft and healthy. Flexitol, it works.
Life as an illegal, hard labor, poor wages, dangerous living conditions. Geraldo exposes their daily struggle and investigates immigrant deaths allegedly at the hands of those sworn to protect and serve. Geraldo at large. Then, no more Imus in the morning. And this shock jock producer blames Al Sharpton.
That's what the anger is about.
Now they face off on Hannity and Colmes. Plus, a mysterious murder has police puzzled. Who killed a couple and their son? Kimberly investigates the chilling case. It's a powerful primetime lineup on Fox News Channel.
Welcome back to the Beltway Boys. Let's check out our ups and downs for the week. Up, Ted Kennedy. He was a major force in crafting this week's bipartisan deal between Congress and the White House on immigration reform. Here's Kennedy and President Bush Thursday.
Year after year, we've all heard talk about reforming our system. We've heard the bumper sticker solutions, the campaign ads, and we know how divisive it is. Well, now it's time for action. 2007 is the year we must fix our broken system.
As I reflect upon this important accomplishment, important first step toward a comprehensive immigration bill, it reminds me of how much the Americans appreciate the fact that that we can work together. When we work together, that they see positive things.
You know, more than with the White House, this was a deal worked out between Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats, mainly John Kyle, the senator from Arizona, and Teddy Kennedy. Now, you know what I like about Teddy Kennedy? as a senator, he is someone who wants to pass legislation on the issues he cares about, not just use those issues to exploit those issues, you know, to pound on the president and Republicans. He actually wants to do things. And he may be a liberal, but he is certainly not a hack. And he reached a great compromise here with Republicans and got a lot of the things he wanted, one of which was to have all 12 million illegal immigrants here given almost immediately legal status in America. Not citizenship, but you know, this measure also would provide a path to citizenship if they want it for these illegal immigrants here. Now, John Kyle and Republicans got a lot too. They got their beefed up border enforcement, and they also set high qualifications, or rather requirements, for those who do want to become citizens. You know, they'll have to get a green card eventually. They'll have to go back to their home country and so on. I think this is an excellent bill. There would not be a bill that could pass without Senator Kennedy.
Well, Fred, I like the bill, I got to tell you, but what's interesting to me is there are two things that are just, I think, you know, it makes me wonder. One, imagine how the labor unions, and already we know the labor unions are going to mount some opposition to this bill. Why? Because you've got a guest worker provision that allows people to, requires people, I should say, to go home after 2 years. What that means is you build in a low-wage base of workers in the country. It's going to drive down wages for everybody, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. In addition, it may, in fact, invite people to try to then violate the law again by staying after their 2 years are up. They have no chance of citizenship after that 2 years. They have to go back home. They can get another 2 years, but no chance of citizenship. Already you're seeing complaints, and of course, the voice on the presidential levels will be Edwards. Edwards is going to come out and say that this is not what he wants. This is not going to help deal with poverty in America. The second point, family reunification. Didn't quite get thrown under the bus, but definitely pushed into the shade as opposed to being in the center of the stage, which is where family unification used to be with regard to immigration in this country. We keep families together. We believe in family. Instead now, the emphasis is on this point system where if you have an education, if you have specific skills, you have an advantage in getting a green card and getting into this country, getting on the path to immigration. These are different systems, I think, and Americans are going to have to come to terms. Now, I agree with Harry Reid. It's a starting point, but this is a wonderful starting point because the fact is they're here, Fred. 10 and 11, you got to do it. All right.
They're not going back.
Absolutely. All right. Down, Attorney General Alberto Gonzales. The White House continues to stand by its man, but Democrats are planning to hold a no-confidence vote in the Senate next week on the embattled Attorney General. 5 Republican senators have called on him to resign, and Republican Senator Arlen Specter says a congressional inquiry on the attorney firings won't be pretty to watch.
I have a sense that when we finish our investigation, we may have a conclusion of the tenure of the Attorney General. I think when our investigation is concluded, it'll be clear even to the Attorney General and the President that we're looking at a dysfunctional department which is vital to the national welfare.
Now, the Attorney General has his defenders who point out that the Justice Department did nothing illegal in terms of trying to get those wiretaps, and that's what they were doing. They were going to John Ashcroft's bedside in a hospital to try to get his approval, but they really didn't need it.
I know.
And the second thing is they point out this was going on the day before the Madrid attacks, and they were desperate to get information, again, possibly to thwart that attack. But the fact is, it reads like a novel, Fred, and it's not attractive. This is like, you know, remember when Woodward said he went to Bill Casey's hospital bed? Terrible stuff, and I got to say, everybody in the country is talking about it, and it actually, for some people on the liberal side, it makes John Ashcroft look good. They're wondering, hey, what happened here?
Gonzales is staying. You know why he's staying?
Tell me.
Because he's done nothing wrong. The White House knows he's done nothing wrong, and just because Chuck Schumer and a few Democrats want to throw him overboard, and even some Republicans, as we noticed, want to throw him overboard, they're not going to do that because they shouldn't do it.
It's this functional Justice Department under this guy.
Look, firing the U.S. attorneys was perfectly legal. What he did going to Ashcroft's bedside was as well. There are just no grounds for firing, and in the White House is right not to.
All right, coming up, Tony Blair's Washington swan song. And rumors are flying that New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is thinking about a third-party run for the presidency. Pie in the sky, or does Bloomberg have a real shot? We'll take a look after the break.
You know, testing my blood sugar is such a hassle.
Mom, why not make your life easier? Try the Breeze 2-meter. It's the one I use because it has 10 tests in one disc, and I never have to code.
Introducing the new Breeze 2 meter from Bayer. With no coding and now a smaller blood sample and results in 5 seconds. It's easier than ever. Call 800-438-6655 or go online now to get your free Breeze 2 meter, a $65 value.
That sounds a lot easier.
That's easy accuracy. Answered by Bayer.
For each of us, there's a moment of discovery. We understand that all of life is elemental. And as we marvel at element bonding with element, we soon realize that when you add the human element to the equation, everything changes. Suddenly, all of chemistry illuminates humanity, and all of humanity illuminates chemistry. The human element. Nothing is more fundamental, nothing more elemental.
You love whole grains, chicken, salmon, and leafy greens. Help your cat eat just as healthy with Naturals from Purina Cat Chow. Delicious ingredients cats love and no added artificial flavors or preservatives. You live well, you eat right. Help your cat do the same. Naturals from Purina Cat Chow. Physical, emotional, complete. That's the Purina Cat Chow way of life.
If kids love to eat healthy, you wouldn't need the nutrients in Florida orange juice. One 8-ounce glass counts as almost 25% of your fruit and vegetable servings. Florida orange juice. Healthy, pure, and simple.
When the moment's right, you'll want to be confident that you'll be ready. Anytime, anywhere. Maxiderm's amazing male enhancement formula works instantly and feels great. If you've ever wondered if male enhancement products really work, now's the time to try Maxiderm.
He doesn't need a prescription. He uses Maxiderm.
Call the number on your screen right now to try Maxiderm absolutely risk-free. Plus, for a limited time, receive a free pack of Vasamine for sustained performance. Maxiderm is instant male enhancement. She knows you've still got it after all these years. That performance edge. Your secret? Maxiderm. And even though Maxiderm's recommended by a leading physician, you don't need a prescription to get it.
Prescriptions are one thing. Maxiderm is completely different.
Call the number on your screen right now to try Maxiderm absolutely risk-free. Plus, for a limited time, receive a free pack of Vasamine for sustained performance. Call in the next 15 minutes and get upgraded rush delivery absolutely free. Maxiderm is instant male enhancement.
Welcome back to the Beltway Boys. I'm Juan Williams in for Mort Kondracki. We're continuing with our ups and downs for the week, and here's an up. New York's Mayor Michael Bloomberg, he's floating the idea of a third-party bid for the presidency, and friends say he's prepared to spend as much as $1 billion, B-I-L-L-I-O-N dollars to make it happen. Fred, this is a truly interesting development because what you got here is a situation where an independent bid by Bloomberg is likely, I think, to hurt Democrats. Let's look back. You remember Perot, way back, he took votes, I think, from Democrats and to some extent, Clinton in that Clinton race against Bush. But you come forward and you think for a second about Ralph Nader. He definitely took votes from Democrats. So here we have an independent run, likely by Mayor Bloomberg. It seems to me that an independent run by Bloomberg is going to be really not have much to do with what we just heard about name identification and money, because he's got so much money and he's going to put a lot of that money into TV ads, so people are going to know who he is. I think it's going to be an interesting development. Don't forget, he's been meeting with Chuck Hagel, and Chuck Hagel has been saying maybe it could be a Bloomberg-Hagel ticket, and I think that will peel off some votes from Democrats, especially those swing voters in the middle.
Yeah, right now, on your point about whether whether Bloomberg is well known or not, I think his name recognition is something like 27%. It's not very good. But here's the problem. There is no rationale for a Bloomberg presidency. What's wrong? He doesn't have an issue. Perot had the issue of the deficit. George Wallace was a third-party candidate. Race was his issue. So, but there's none for Bloomberg. He's not even a particularly distinguished mayor of New York. I mean, what's his great achievement there? He doesn't have one at all. Here's the only way he could credibly run, I think, for president if there is a far far right-wing Republican nominee and a far left-wing Democratic nominee, say Tom Tancredo versus Dennis Kucinich, then he could jump in and he could be the centrist candidate. Other than that, forget it. All right, up Gordon Brown. Britain's Labour Party backed him as the only candidate to be Prime Minister succeeding Tony Blair. Blair held his final meeting this week with President Bush at the White House, in which he made no apologies for backing the American president. Watch.
Anybody who's sitting there advising a politician in any part of Europe today, if you want to get the easiest round of applause, get up and attack America. You get a round of applause, you attack the president, you get a
standing ovation.
Yeah. And that's fine if everyone wants to do that, but when all of that is cleared away, you're left with something very, very simple, fundamental, and clear, that battle for values is still going on.
Who says Bush doesn't have a sense of humor?
That was pretty good.
That was a pretty good line. Look, Gordon Brown is not going to be exactly Tony Blair, but he's already visited with Bush over here. He has many, many American friends. I think a lot more than Blair did in the beginning. And everyone I talk to in England, whether they're conservatives or liberals, Labour or Tory, they all say the best friend for America coming along would not be the head of the Conservative Party, David Cameron, but is Gordon Brown.
But I think that you're going to see a big difference, and I think you see it in terms of public opinion. The reason, and let's admit it, the reason Tony Blair is gone is the war in Iraq. It's the war in Iraq, by the way, that goes back to Mayor Bloomberg. That's why an independent candidacy from Bloomberg might work. But you wait around. Tony Blair is going to be all around the country. In the United States, he's going to be pretty popular. But I just don't see Gordon Brown in any way supporting the troop levels that Blair put in place. Now, don't move a muscle, because the buzz is coming right up.
We know why we're here. To redefine air travel for a new generation.
To ensure our forces are safer and stronger.
To take the world we share to tomorrow and beyond.
Around the globe, the people of Boeing are working together to make a difference.
That's why we're here.
The world's demand for energy will never stop, which is why a farmer is growing corn, and a farmer is growing soy, and why ADM is turning these crops into biofuels. The world's demand for energy will never stop, which is why ADM will never stop. We're only getting started. ADM, resourceful by nature.
Smiling at me, nothing but blue sky.
Today, there's a fuel that, when paired with advanced diesel engines, will help reduce truck emissions by 90%. And that means bluer skies and cleaner air for all of us. Introducing new ultra-low sulfur diesel. From the people who bring you oil and natural gas. Learn more at energytomorrow.org.
Golf free for the rest of your life on all of our executive courses, and enjoy free lifetime membership in all of our country clubs, including the Arnold Palmer and Nancy Lopez signature courses. Start living a millionaire's lifestyle on your retirement budget. Visit thevillages.com and order your free lifestyle video tour of the Villages today.
Long-lasting relief from muscle pain isn't so easy to come by. That's why there's Thermacare, the only heat wrap clinically proven to provide 16 hours of soothing muscle pain relief from 8 hours of heat. Thermacare, wrap yourself in long-lasting relief.
Here's the buzz, Juan. The bipartisan bill on immigration has revived this long-standing debate over immigration among Republicans and conservatives, and it is an ugly debate. The best thing that can happen for Republicans, since this debate drives away voters and Hispanics in particular, is to pass the bill and get that issue off the table by November 2008 anyway.
Fred, here's another piece of buzz, and this one is really speculative, but there's a possibility that Tony Blair may be the replacement for Paul Wolfowitz at the World Bank. Now, wouldn't that be interesting? Because, as you know, the president of the World Bank's always been an American.
Yeah.
But if there's one non-American that the Bush administration would embrace, want to hold up, guess who? Tony Blair.
I think you got that right. All right, that's all for the Beltway Boys this week. Join us next week when the boys will be back in town, and stick around. Fox News Watch is coming up in just a few seconds.